Benji,
Yeah.
when you become a successful producer, which actors do you plan on using for multiple shows?
Oh, well, I'm actually not trying to be a producer.
You're not going to produce this.
So-
Every actor, when they get bored of being in front of the camera, realizes that they can control other people with their money, becomes a producer.
Oh, honey, I don't get bored of being in front of the camera.
Right, but then you also want to control with your money, so then you'll become a producer. Even if you're a bad producer, you'll still be like, I want it.
I guess in that case, my favorite actor to reuse would be myself. Look at that. I'm going to be like Adam Sandler.
Ugh, I was going to say Tyler Perry.
That too.
Not the black thing, but just kind of like the annoying part. Adam Sandler, too.
Mm-hmm.
He's annoying, too.
Yeah, and I'll just reuse myself and maybe a few of my friends.
Yeah.
How about you? Same question.
I mean,
since
obviously, I'd be using the actors that I end up really working with, but if I had to choose one right now,
Yeah.
I feel like I hear nothing but good things about like Terry Crews.
I
would-
he'd be fun.
Absolutely. And also it would be fun with an actor like that. He's so distinct that finding a new role for him in each project would
Yeah.
be fun, you know?
Yeah.
Like how's it, like sometimes he just shows up as the concierge and you're like, I don't know if I see him as a concierge. You know,
Rizzo, I know you like to use him, but
shut up. Like it'd be fun to like take actors like that who have like very distinct like looks to them. But I feel like that's what they do with him even in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like,
oh, for sure. I think his whole shtick is that he looks one way but acts another way.
Right.
You know, because he looks obviously like the big, tough, terrifying black guy.
Yeah.
But then always his character is the like heart of gold, like sweetie, like really nice guy who actually is a little bit of a bitch.
the real question is, when Ryan Murphy eventually makes a TV show based on your life, who do you want to play you?
Me. I don't know where you saw that going.
I still want Terry Crews to play you.
No, that is not my
The
experience.
Benji Terry Crews is.
And why would
Benji
Terry
Jones.
Crews play me? If you're making it, that's what I think is funny about when people are like, "Oh, who would play you in a movie?" They're probably not born yet. Like
I said Terry Crews.
they're at least not popular.
That was it. That was my transition to the title.
All right, let's get started.
Okay.
I'm Josiah Rizzo.
I'm Benji Jones.
And on Wednesdays, we wear pink.
Hello, all you Vogers, and welcome to the Pink Popcast, the pop culture podcast that talks about film, media,
and everything else.
and the impact that it's leaving or has left on our lives.
Okay.
I'm Josiah.
Somewhere RuPaul is turning over in his judge's chair.
I'm Josiah Rizzo.
I'm Benji Jones.
No, hey.
Fix that. Fix it.
No.
Fix it.
No. I was fine what I was doing.
Fix what I did, though.
No, you're staying. I get to see how we work together. I'm Josiah Rizzo. I'm a writer, director, filmmaker.
And I am Benji Jones. I am an actor, podcaster, and 6-time national show choir champion.
Oh, did you go to regionals?
Yes.
Oh
I
my
went to
God.
regionals.
He does not stop talking about regionals. He just won't shut up about regionals. I don't know what regionals are, but I know he goes to them.
We flipped to a community reference on that one.
Right, but we flipped to a community referencing Glee reference.
Exactly. That's referencing what I'm saying. That's
Right.
referencing,
It's like
obviously,
a
Ryan
reference,
Murphy. So
reference sandwich.
it's a reference circle.
Yeah, but this is a pop culture podcast, and today we're talking about...
We are talking about a crazy creative director, one of my favorite directors, who's a pop culture juggernaut.
Yeah, those are the words I wrote down.
Ryan Murphy.
Why are you looking at my
Yours
notes?
is bigger.
Bring your notes up on here.
They're up.
This guy has been on television, or he has been producing television since 1999.
Goodness gracious.
Which-
That, if you've been listening to our podcast, is the first year that I knew what years were. So, not when I was born, but it's when I became conscious of the world around me.
Yes, that's it. And this was obviously someone you wanted to talk about. You brought it up a while ago, and I felt like now was a good time to talk about him because May 1st was supposed to be the release of his Netflix show, Hollywood, which stars all of the regulars.
It stars a few of his people. I took notice of him with Glee. I feel like probably most people did.
Right.
And then follow through with like American Horror Story and Scream Queens, and then most recently The Politician, and you kind of start to realize like, oh, like I really like the things that this guy does.
Right.
So I was kind of like thinking it would be a fun thing to really have an episode and have future episodes where we really educate our audience on like producers and filmography, and creators and artists all together, and just kind of.
And this guy pretty much is like doing research. I was honestly surprised at how little I knew about him.
Yeah.
Did you even know that he had been working like since before?
No,
Glee?
and that's what's interesting. I know everybody does a million times more things than they're popular for.
Right.
So it's really good if I'm going to call somebody like one of my favorites
that they're popular for. That's a little reference at something we're gonna say pretty soon.
Yes.
Right here on the podcast.
So people do a lot more, and if I'm going to say somebody's my favorite or that I like them a lot, I should know what's going on. So, you know, hopefully we can cover a lot of people and educate you guys, and, you know, y'all learn some things that people tend to do.
Yeah, I definitely didn't know about his first show before Nip Tuck. I was surprised that he's directed. So this is a creator of multiple different shows, shows that have spun off, anthology series that have had different seasons. He has also directed 2 theatrical films and 1 HBO film, which I didn't know about.
Yeah, no, I definitely didn't know about them either. And when I was reading like the things he was doing, I was like, oh man, that was him too. Okay, crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So this has been quite an education, to the point that when I was done doing research, I was like, I feel like I know
way more than you wanted to know.
Way more than I know more about Ryan Murphy than Steven Spielberg. So
there you go. Buckle up and get ready for a ride, bitches.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to take the lead?
Yeah. Let me get us started over here.
Read my first note. It's my favorite note.
Okay. Oh my God.
Read it.
He is a self-declared gay kid from Indiana who moved to Hollywood in 1989 with $55 in savings in my pocket.
He self-declared that he is.
You can't self-declare facts, okay? Like
I self-declare.
If he's the self-declared like camp king of TV, camp king of pop culture, that is a self-declared title. If he can't be self-declared as a gay kid from Indiana who moved here in 1989 with $55 in his pocket, because that's what happened. Like,
I don't know but did that really happen? Were you there with him in 1989? He could have moved in 1990.
You know what?
Then he would have really been the self-declared kid.
But as far as we know, that's true. And let's just go ahead and say he moved from Indiana in 1989.
He was self-declared born on November 9th.
Gross. I don't think you declare. I don't think you come out and go, I am born.
Hey, you don't know. Ryan Murphy was born November 9th, 1965 in Indianapolis, Indiana.
How old does that make him?
He was raised in an Irish Catholic family and attended... Right. Yeah, I don't know math.
No, for sure.
And attended a Catholic school until 8th grade.
He performed in a choir as a child, which obviously helped inspire a very popular show.
Oh, right. Which one?
She who shall not be named. You'll see what show it inspired later.
Is it always a shocker to you when you see these like people who are famous for being so just like avant-garde and out there and flamboyant? Does it surprise you when you find out that they like grew up in a really strict spiritual environment?
No, I think it would surprise me more if I found out he grew up in LA.
Interesting.
Honestly, like, yeah.
Do you think that
people, when you repress that long, I mean, you can go one of two ways. You can either, like stay that way your whole life and be like, I'm not going to leave. This is safe. Or you can be like, fuck that.
Right.
The exact opposite.
Do you feel like the harsh environment fosters good creativity?
I think that what you ask is what you pose is a good, very interesting question.
It's a very political response.
Yeah.
I like that.
Now, I think that it's hard. I think it depends on the person, because a lot of times things like that can stifle someone's creativity, but truly creative people are going to be creative regardless of their surroundings, I think. So trying to stifle that is really just going to make somebody push back.
Yeah. So you heard it here, parents. If your kid seems like he's too much for you, he is. Try to hold on to him with all of your might. And then one day he'll make you famous by saying F you to everything you taught him and doing his own thing or her own thing or their own thing.
Whatever.
Or
them own thing.
Just, don't allow them to be themselves until they're ready to move out.
Yeah, for sure. That's how parenting.
Wheel of morality. Our wheel of morality just gets worse and worse each episode.
I feel like we have like multiple wheels that are just progressively worse than the other one.
I don't know if you read this, but he grew up, he was closeted. He was 13 years old, and he had a relationship with a 22-year-old man that they were corresponding back and forth. That's all it said. It just said,
call me by your name, am I right? That's another episode.
They were corresponding through letters, and his mom discovered the letters and outed him, and this just added more fuel to the fire that his father...
This was before internet history, because that's what happened to me and most people in this generation.
Really?
Is it's internet history. When I was like 18, I talked to like a 33-year-old at one point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like for like 5 seconds.
Jesus was 33 years old.
Look at that. Maybe he was trying to save me. Yeah, it was like for 10 seconds, and we had one phone call, and I was like, that was awkward, and I stopped talking to him.
Is that? Yeah. It's funny because like he is now later, obviously he reconciled with his father, who unfortunately passed away before his first child was born.
Oh.
But he did reconcile with him.
That's
Now, this was a father that Ryan grew up with, that would constantly take him to the kitchen and just be like, yeah, I don't see myself in you. Can you tell me why that is? And this was before he was even like out of the closet. He would say like, I don't know. I'm this, all these things that you're not. He's like, I'm just me. Which is like...
Were they like kitchen talks?
It was kind of like, I'm starting to get drunk and belligerent late at night, and I want you to know I'm not happy with everything.
Okay.
But he did mention that he reconciled with his father.
That's good.
And he tries to continue his relationship with his mother, especially now that he has kids. But one of the biggest things was like, he was like, I can't really fault my mom for, outing me and grounding me and taking away my car because, what would you do if your 13-year-old kid?
I mean, at that point, yeah, it's like not even about you being gay. It's about the fact that you're talking to a 22-year-old.
I saw that. I was reading it. It was like, and my parents outed me. And
no!
We'll talk about you being gay later.
When you're old enough to have a boyfriend, then we'll talk about it.
But right now, mom and dad have some 22-year-old ass to kick. Dear Lord.
I guess what's his face wasn't a thing at that point.
Who's what's his
Predator
face?
guy.
Oh, right. It's so like, and it's frustrating because that's the problem. Not to sidetrack, but like that's the problem whenever you're holding on to something so tight and you don't foster an environment where your kids
can talk to you.
Then a lot of things that you might have been able to have good conversations about, like, hey, mom, I think I might like this person. How old are they? Too old. Okay, don't do that. Great. I love you. Because we respect each other.
But
that's not going to happen.
Matters of the heart. Like it really, you're not just going to be able to say, hey, maybe don't do
right.
it. Unless it's really early on. Unless you do have a really, really open line of communication where they're like, this guy's cute. And they're like, he's 22.
Yeah.
Swipe left. Now, let's see what happened. Oh, so I guess finally, I don't know if he moved out at this point, but he was working as a journalist for the Miami Herald, LA Times, and New York Daily. Oh, wait, and Knoxville News. And Entertainment Weekly.
Yeah, he was one of those pop culture journalists.
Oh, okay, so he like did pop culture sections probably for like multiple magazines. Oh, yeah. Okay, fun.
So he starts screenwriting and he gets a script picked up by Steven Spielberg.
Oh, look at that.
It was called
Why Can't I Be Audrey Hepburn?
I think it was, from the brief thing I read, it was about a Holly Golightly enthusiast who gets left at the altar.
What's a Holly Golightly?
Benji,
explain.
Do I need to slap you?
No, what? Explain.
Audrey Hepburn, Holly Golightly, Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Oh.
I said, what about Breakfast at Tiffany's? And she said,
Holly Golightly?
No. Isn't this the episode where you're supposed to be educating me? I swear. I swear to God. That's the next one. I need to talk about freaking Audrey Hepburn.
God. Yeah, that would be nice.
So he sells his script to Steven Spielberg. It doesn't go anywhere. And then in 1999, he creates his very first show that airs on television, which we will get into later. But that starts obviously what has now become a 21-year career, which is insane to think about. In a 2012 New Yorker essay subtitled "The Button Pushing Camp of Ryan Murphy," Emily Nussbaum wrote, He's been notorious for constructing fabulous pilots, then driving his inventions off a cliff. Characters get assassinated literally and figuratively. Sly winks become grand mal seizures.
Okay. Well, we'll debate this later.
We will. We will definitely. But this is something that has happened to him regularly. And he's been very open. Well, he was very open about his dislike of criticism. As I was reading up on him, he has grown and softened over the years, especially after he married his now husband.
Yes.
And he has now mentioned saying that, like, it's, you can throw tantrums all you want, but when you have a kid throwing the same tantrum at you, you're just like, oh, is
That's
that
not cute?
Is that what I look like? But prior, he was very open about his dislike of criticism, saying that he takes it personally and doesn't understand why people don't like it.
And then he says, I'm still that kid in high school who gets called fag and wants that girl to be my friend. It's like,
I feel like that speaks to a lot of us. Maybe not specifically.
I think a lot of people are stuck in high school, which is why high school dramas do so well. Is
Yes.
because everybody's like, I identify with that.
Yeah.
Those formative years, they really just, they stick.
Over the course of these shows, what you start to notice is that his voice, as we go through it, his voice starts to come more and more through. He would start to lean more and more into what he wanted, and it would become more or less criticized. And for him, it hurt. It was like, why don't they like me?
And that's hard for any creator to put something out there and have it be torn apart or just even criticized lightly, because it's like, no, I made these choices for a reason. This is what I wanted. And people are like, why did they do that?
Right.
Like, what makes them think this? And it's like, yeah, you do want to throw a fit. And as creatives, we tend to be more dramatic, you know? So it's like, it is a thing that you do have to learn to work through.
And something that's interesting that we can debate later, for the most part, when all of these people, when they start off, these huge behemoths of like pop culture, writing, whatever, when they first start off, they're not allowed to be 100% themselves.
No way.
It gets filtered through so many different levels of producers, actors. So your voice isn't fully heard until you start to make a name for yourself. And then so like you can see that that's probably what starts happening with his shows. Like when he first did his first two, like nobody knows who Ryan Murphy is, but then it starts to get big and then they start to give him a little bit more leeway, a little bit more money, then he gets to do whatever he wants. And then that's when people critically at least start to say, oh, this is going off the rails. But Ryan Murphy, he's bounced back from multiple failures, from the cancellation of his first show, which we'll talk about, to the eventual critical downfall of both Nip Tuck and Glee. Glee, he's actually mentioned, was a hard one for him, not just in terms of critically, but also behind the scenes drama. A lot happened on that. A lot that he was like, I feel like I grew as a creator on that. There's a few people that I still maintain a relationship with, but there's a lot that I don't.
Him and Leah Michelle are just obviously, and Darren Criss too.
Yeah, critically, both Glee and Nip Tuck slipped around. I guess season 3 for sure on Nip Tuck was definitely critically lauded. I don't know about for Glee.
Season 4 is when we stepped out of high school, and then they tried to bring in a new cast of high school students, and people were like, "Hey, maybe don't do that."
That's hard for any show. Like especially sitcoms that are kind of built on a stagnant nature. But you have someone like Ryan Murphy who is.
Well, what was interesting about it is I do find the episodes out of high school, like I like a lot of them more. Like I like the storyline that was happening, but I just didn't like the high school part of it. Like it's like if you're gonna move out of high school,
I get
then
you,
let's move out of high school. But we were stuck there because we needed Sue and Mr. Shoe.
But it's because with a show like that, you see that Ryan Murphy's very well. First off, something that becomes very apparent looking at his filmography, he's clearly got like a creative ADHD. Where it's just like, he's like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, and this.
Yeah, no, I could definitely tell that.
So when you're making a show that in its nature is going to be one continuous story, and it has kind of a sitcom flair to it where it's like it could be very stagnant, where it's like just the same thing repetitively. You can see that he's kind of towing the line back and forth between like how much change can we present before the audience just is like, no. This is...
I remember just the whole like maybe not controversy, but there was a lot of talk around season 4 when it was coming out, and when people were like, oh, like, are they going to graduate? Like, what's going to happen? He was like, this is a show, like, life moves on. they're going to graduate. They're not going to be in high school
Right.
forever. We're going to have to move on. We're going to bring new people in. And everybody's just kind of like, what? And
Right.
I remember that being such like a dramatic thing.
Which is admirable because this show kind of is very much along the lines of like Scrubs or Community, not in tone, but in terms of like what it's set up. It's not strictly in live studio audience sitcom, but it's also, it has a nature where it could easily have been like
Just stayed the same.
stayed the
whole time.
same,
And I
but
think that's what people kind of were expecting.
yeah, but they're also kids in high school, which unlike adults stuck in community college or
No.
or-
I agree. I don't.
no, I know. I agree.
No, I get it. I agree with him.
It's just
I
unfortunate.
think that he shouldn't have had Marley because I hate her. Anyway.
Oh, is that? We'll get there.
All right.
However, he has said though that the most devastating failures that he's experienced, at least at this point, were he had a show that was based around his own life called The New Normal. One season, it failed. And then there was also a failed pilot called Pretty Handsome, which starred Joseph Fiennes as a married gynecologist seeking a sex change, which I don't know if that sounds familiar to you, but that's basically the plot of Transparent.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was like, I think they were trying to sell it to FX, and
It just wasn't there.
the producer was like, dude, this is not something I can really sell without nudity.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't think we can do the story justice, and I don't think people are going to pick it up. And much like a lot of his other projects, he was very ahead of the time.
Yeah.
And this is something about auteurs like this who are not profiting, or they're not like jumping on a bandwagon of like, oh wow, gay's now cool in the norm.
He's trying to set that trend.
He was obviously trailblazing before any of this.
Yeah, and I think now that he's made his name, he can do that. Like he can drop things like Pose, where people are like, oh wow, this hasn't been done before.
Yeah, where the majority of the cast is all trans,
gay and transgender.
Yeah.
And it's all just about that culture.
Yeah.
Exclusively. Like that is something you can't do if you don't have a name.
Right.
And it's not gonna pop off like it did. But now he's put himself kind of in that that world and that category of like, this is what I know, this is what I write about. And it hasn't been done before.
So while the Taylor Swifts of the world are being like, oh yeah, we love doing gay stuff,
you need to calm down because
Ryan Murphy's
I've
like,
supported
"Bish,
the gays forever.
I've already been here. I've been here since 1999.
I've been holding this down by my damn self.
Something that I thought was particularly heartbreaking in reference to The New Normal, the show that was based on his life. He was quoted as saying that you've really not felt the pain of rejection until a television show based on your own life is canceled, which...
yeah, a little hurtful.
But as we've said, his name, I mean, it's become its own brand now to the point where his involvement pretty much can guarantee or garner interest.
Yeah.
To the point of Pose wasn't actually developed by him. It was developed by Steve Canals, which, so Ryan Murphy had been interested in doing a show kind of like that. They hadn't really developed anything, whereas Steve had actually developed the show and was trying to shop it around, but no one was picking it up.
And they were like, hey.
And Ryan Murphy heard about this, slaps his name on it, obviously gets involved creatively. But that's interesting is like this guy was trying to break through with the show even now.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, yeah, no, of course you can get a show like that made. Like, yeah, you can get a show like that made if your name is Ryan Murphy.
But again, yeah, that's what I said basically is if you don't have that.
I agree.
That's what I said.
No, I know.
I literally just said that. You're
know.
repeating what I said. His first TV series
1999.
named Popular.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was created by Ryan Murphy and Gina
And it
Matthews.
was actually on the WB on September 29th, 1999 was the premiere.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it ran for 2 seasons. Jeez, 2 seasons.
2 seasons and starred people that we don't really even know now.
I know who Leslie Bibb is.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah.
So that one and who else?
It also starred, oh my God, Leslie Grossman, who she was the funny sister on What I Like About You.
The friend of the friend of Jennifer Garth.
Yes.
Because I watched the preview and I was like, oh my gosh, I think that's her. I wasn't sure.
No, it was.
Okay, fine. I was like looking for any sort of a preview and all I could find was the opening song. And
Really?
like the first episode. And I
You,
was like,
I do believe if you search really hard, you can find it on YouTube. So the episodes are available on YouTube, but they're not available to stream anywhere else.
yeah.
It was set in a high school. It was about two teenage girls who are on opposite sides of the popularity spectrum.
Of course.
And they're forced to get along when their single parents meet on a cruise ship and get married.
Okay. Okay, Ryan Murphy. I see you just giving us a little flavor of what's to
Right.
come. Just like, okay.
He was like, I'll give you this in the future, but there'll be more singing involved.
Yes, he was like, I like to deal with popularity
Yeah.
and outcastism.
One interesting nugget. So we had a character on the show who used to wear a lot of fur, and you would get constant notes of like, hey, they're wearing too much fur. Stop having them wear fur, which was pretty much code for like, that character's too gay. Like, need you to, make it a little less gay.
Yeah. So a male character that was wearing too much
The
fur.
futility of telling Ryan Murphy to be less gay.
Right.
I don't.
I'm sure that character came out with not only fur but sequins the next season. Like what? You said no more fur. He's wearing sequins now. I don't understand your problem.
Damn
People
it,
will be
Ryan.
happy.
Ryan. What?
Could you make him look like less of a fairy? I was gonna go with something real
I
nasty,
could feel it.
and I was like,
I could feel it. I could feel the intensity. I'm so glad you didn't take it out on me. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're safe.
That gets canceled after 2 seasons.
2 seasons. I don't really know anything else about it, but I would honestly, if I had found that back in the day,
Oh, you would absolutely have watched that.
I don't know. That wasn't really my type back in the day, but if I had found it a few years later,
Oh, right.
I would have really liked that.
Well, according to Rotten Tomatoes,
Nah, this is what I'm wondering. What's up with the tomato meter?
so the tomato meter represents the critics,
Okay.
and the audience score obviously represents how audience felt about it. Tomato meter 60%.
Okay.
Audience score is 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
BS.
This no shade on Ryan Murphy, and I will shade Ryan Murphy.
Oh, yeah.
I will.
He
Look,
will.
just because I did the research on the man doesn't mean I love the man.
Excuse me. I mean, like, I respect him, but I'm not, like, gay.
Okay.
Or not,
right.
like, trying to marry him or something. Shut up.
You shut
You like him.
But for reals though, 100%
Is, like, impossible.
even the most well-regarded shows don't usually have 100%.
That's what I'm saying. Like, Friends doesn't have 100%. Like, come on.
Audience score doesn't have 100%, really?
I'm assuming.
That's,
I don't think I've ever seen anything at 100%.
that's
Have
yeah,
you?
that's true. Well, I've seen things at 100% like the first 2 weeks that they're released.
Yeah,
but
but I'm like, after something's been out for, what, 99 is like 20 years ago?
I think, but a lot of times it averages out. The way that the Rotten Tomatoes works is it averages out the majority of the votes. So clearly, 2 people who are big fans of Popular searched it up on Rotten Tomatoes, voted it,
The only 2 people that voted.
and nobody else has gone in and been like, "Wait, no, this is a piece of
Somebody
trash."
needs to go give it, what, like a 30 and
Yeah.
just average that out a little bit?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
So then he moves on to.
To Nip Tuck, okay?
Had you ever watched this?
No. Well, I thought it was actually like a reality series. Like,
I think I thought that too.
up until like probably a few years ago when I was like, oh, this was a show. Like it was like Grey's Anatomy or something.
Right.
But I definitely thought it was like a botched type show where it's like, ooh, all these people are addicted to plastic surgery, and
No.
you're gonna watch the before and after. And
No,
then,
it was very much. It apparently it was huge for the first 2 seasons. It was like
yeah, I remember hearing Nip Tuck, Nip Tuck, Nip Tuck.
yeah, and I didn't know, but it was about 2 plastic surgeons, one a dedicated family man, and one an unscrupulous playboy.
Scrupulous playboy.
Strive to maintain their business whilst having to work their way through numerous hardships ranging from personal relationships to clients with criminal connections.
Ooh,
Actually kind of sounds a little interesting,
yeah,
but knowing Ryan Murphy would probably it would very derail very quickly.
You would probably get annoyed with it pretty quickly. The thing about these 2 shows is if they weren't so old, because now they just kind of wouldn't be relatable. The quality wouldn't be where
Right.
something would be now, where like I could watch it. Like I could probably watch the last couple seasons of Nip Tuck and really enjoy it. But like as far as if I had watched them early on, I probably would have liked them a lot.
Right.
But also I was just, and this time I was way too young to enjoy anything like these.
This show was apparently very graphic.
Yeah,
They
so-
the way that they tackled the scenes of these
The
surgeries.
Yeah. Well, that would be his American Horror Story coming out.
So I guess it was his first FX show.
Yeah.
Which he was.
And then he never turned back.
Well, up until recently.
Yeah.
They actually took a big blow losing him to.
I can imagine to
Netflix because half of their biggest shows are on
our programming, or him.
But yeah, it premiered on FX on July 22nd, 2003.
And it ran for 6 seasons.
I didn't even realize that.
And they didn't have a movie. Missed opportunity.
Ended March 3rd, 2010. And its tomato meter, it's rated 75% critically on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay, and the audience score is actually 80%. So we're
solid.
We got some solid scores here,
Solid. It's not the worst scoring he's ever going to have. Let's just put it that way.
But I feel like 75 and 80 are pretty good.
Right. So we move on to his first feature film.
Okay, called Running with Scissors.
It was written and directed by Ryan Murphy. It was based on the book of the same name by Augustine Burroughs. Released October 27th, 2007.
Nice.
It starred Annette Bening, Brian Cox, Joseph Fiennes, who, like I said, he would later work on with Pretty Handsome, Evan, Rachel Wood, Alec Baldwin, and
Gwyneth Paltrow, who he does like to work with.
He does like to work with a lot. And she's actually, I don't know if she's married or she's in a relationship with his longtime partner, creative partner, Brad Falchuk.
Oh, okay. I was like, she's married to his ex? Like, what?
No, she's at least in a relationship with Brad Falchuk. I haven't checked to see if they're married yet.
What that is.
Because honestly, I didn't care to research that.
Right. So the story is the son of a bipolar poet mother with delusions of grandeur who falls into the care of an unorthodox psychiatrist. So, watching the preview, the opening scene is his dad sitting him down in his office and going, "I don't see myself in you." Yeah.
Really?
Yes. So,
I didn't.
I know.
Huh.
I was like, wow. So I thought it was almost an autobiography, and then it's definitely not. I guess it's based on a book, but that would probably be why he took it.
Yeah.
It's like, this is me, basically, because, yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting. I told Grace, I was going through his filmography before I actually started researching him. And it was like, by the time I got to Pose, I was like, I feel like I know, like, you're not going to surprise me with who Ryan Murphy is.
Yeah.
Because, when you look at what he's done, you can tell what he cares about.
Yeah, and where it comes from.
What applies to him, what he feels like a connection to. So, however, critically, this film was a 31%.
Wow.
And audience score 56%.
This one did not do well.
No.
But the audience liked it halfway. They were like, okay.
Yeah, something you'll know. Actually, his third film was critically acclaimed.
Yeah.
But
his films don't necessarily always do
No. And it usually kind of comes down to the same thing. A lot of people criticizing the characters. They don't feel like they can connect to them. They feel like it's all over the place, not really sure exactly what the theme and we'll talk about this when we start to talk about how we feel overall about his work.
Yeah.
But I will preface that I don't like to fault filmmakers for attempting things. I don't like to fault them for going out on a limb and trying something out. It's not always going to work. And unlike usually where it's like one or twice, with Ryan Murphy, you start to see a recurring pattern that some people like, but critically a lot of people aren't very big on. So
a lot of people who are wrong, but you'll hear this argument later.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. Next, we have the one and only, the immortal Glee. Glee. Oh my gosh. So this one was created by, obviously, Ryan Murphy, Brad Falchuk, and Ian Brennan. It premiered on Fox May 19th, 2009, right after the finale of that season of, what's it called?
American Idol?
American Idol. I was like, why did I just draw such a hard blank on that? It ran for 6 seasons, and it starred Leah Michele, Chris Colfer, Matthew Morrison, Corey Monteith, Jane Lynch, Darren Criss,
Keep going.
Amber Riley, Heather Morris, Naya Rivera, and just a slew of amazing people.
I met Naya Rivera.
Yes, you did, and you had her send me a happy birthday.
I did. I met Naya Rivera.
Okay, that was
I met her.
Somebody's favorite character.
I met Santana.
I met Coach Beast when I went to a
Wait, what?
I think I told you this, but I met her. I went to a taping of Baby Daddy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
she was a guest guest star. And so I went down and talked to her after, and I was like, oh my gosh, love Glee, loved you on Glee. And she's like, oh yeah, I really loved my character arcs, and started talking about her character arc in the last season. And I smiled and nodded and pretended that I had finished Glee, which I haven't, because I refuse to finish the show. Because then it will be over. But if I don't finish it, then I always have new episodes.
You are like, do you remember Home Alone 2 when Kevin McAllister tells the pigeon lady that he had those really awesome shoes and that he never wore them?
Yeah.
And then he eventually outgrew them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One day Netflix is going to crash and you're not going to have anywhere to turn to and you'll have never seen those episodes. Okay, moving on.
No, because they're on DVD.
Okay, do you have those DVDs?
Not yet.
All right. Anyway, what was Glee about for those who've lived under a rock for the past 10 years?
Glee was about a Glee club. All right, that was fun.
Continue.
Glee was a musical dramedy about the misfits who make up a high school singing club with teacher Will Schuester, the one-time Glee Club star. He was a former Glee Club member at the same school.
Okay.
Who leads them and must constantly protect his students from. I'm just like laughing at how this is written.
Some of these
are not necessarily your
synopses are really
writing.
funny. No, they're definitely not all my writing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to write a synopsis for every single one.
Yeah, and then basically he has to protect them from Jane Lynch's character of
Sue Sylvester.
Who's the cheerleading coach who hates them.
Right.
Because
Why?
they stole her funding. So
that makes sense now.
Yeah, she's a 5-time national cheerleading champion coach. She basically brings in all the money for the school. And so when Will was like, I want to start a Glee club, he was like, okay, but we'll siphon off a little bit from the cheerleading program. And she was like, no, the fuck you won't. And so basically, yeah. And then he's just fighting for a spot where he can get actual like good funding, because he's only taking like a little bit of her budget, but she's like out to destroy them now.
I've seen plenty of episodes. You force-fed those episodes to me.
I didn't force feed
You
anything.
force-fed them with the sugar of Naya Rivera.
Very sweetly.
It was like a spoonful of Naya Rivera sugar, and the medicine was
the
Glee.
rest of the show. You're gross. Also, it's just funny.
Is that the most heterosexual thing I've ever said?
Probably, yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I mean, I love Glee. I love that. I love how hot.
It's funny because I think we've already talked about this, how you really don't like musical breaks in movies and shows and stuff like that.
Right.
And I like live for them. But I think it's so funny how much you don't like them, because when we're watching the shows together, I notice that even when Naya Rivera is singing, you still don't pay attention. And I'm like, bro, this is why you're watching this show. she is front and center right now for the next 2.5 minutes, and you still can't buy.
I'm sorry, musicals are just, and I'm gonna say it right now. I will criticize shows and I'll lay into them, but I'm not gonna lay into them for being something that I just don't like to begin with.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't like musicals, so Glee was never really gonna speak to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care, but I don't fault it for that. Obviously, it was. I mean, I don't think there was anything out like it at the time.
No, because there was obviously High School Musical was like a precursor,
right? Which did speak to what people like.
Yeah, but it was still completely different in the fact that it was a very Disney, like, oh, we're all friends, we're all in this together,
right?
And this was very much like it's us against the world.
I do think though it could have paved the way for this idea of like, oh, we do actually enjoy watching this kind of interesting idea of like High School Musical type.
Well, I mean, I guess already knew that was popular because Grease was the first High School Musical.
Right, but what had come out recently that was like, there wasn't anything recently that compared.
No, for sure. We mentioned this earlier, but I didn't hop on to High School Musical or Glee until later.
Right.
For similar reasons, I didn't hop on a High School Musical until right before the second one, because I thought like, oh, this is lame. It's a stupid High School Musical for kids. And then I was very wrong. And then Glee, similarly-ish, I had a lot of friends that were like, hey, you like High School Musical, right? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, you should watch Glee. And I was like, no. Because, all the ads were them being like losers. And I was like, I don't want to watch a show about a bunch of losers. A bunch of weirdos. So I didn't get into it until the second season. Halfway through the second season, I don't even know how it ended up happening, but I just started watching it on TV.
Right.
And I was like, this is awesome. And And then I was like hooked, and it was sad because I wasn't a big enough fan at the time that they did the Glee concert.
Right. Oh, so you
Actually
missed
go
out on
to
that.
it, yeah.
I remember like somewhere around like the second season I feel like that's when they start. Is that when they introduced like Xyces and and the Christian kid? And I started to get really annoyed with the show.
The Dreadlock Christian kid?
Yeah, Dreadlock
No,
Christian
he's
kid?
not until like season 4.
Okay, well, whatever.
I remember you had a passionate dislike for Xyces' character.
I didn't like a lot of those characters because what I started to notice, it was just like it was admirable what he was doing, and something that he does do was just like, these are the characters that normally get made fun of. And the one endearing thing about most of Ryan Murphy's work is they're the underdogs.
Yeah.
But they were so annoying and arrogant. Xyces in particular, she just was annoying. And it was like, okay, I know I'm supposed to like, I don't want to dislike her for the reasons that media has told me to dislike her.
Yeah.
You know, but she's also not making it easy for me to like her. I don't really want to go down that path either.
Basically, it was, so Xyces was a larger, like overweight female character.
Right.
Who had kind of an unearned confidence to her that was not like confidence of, oh, I'm not ashamed of who I am, but it was very much like a very overtly, I'm better than all of you, that she would constantly like say.
And to be frank, I don't like any character like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not the fact that it's like, oh, you don't have room to talk or like anything like that. It's just the fact that any character like that is annoying.
Right. And it started to get populated with a lot of characters like that where I was just like,
yeah.
And I felt bad. I'm like, I don't want to hate these characters, but also like you're making them really annoying. And then the Christian kid was kind of like, he felt so like, that was the point. I was like, this.
But what's funny is the Christian kid was real.
Yeah, I know. He was like, he won the
Glee project. Yeah.
It started to be the thing with Glee for me is like, it started to hit a point where it just felt like every character was written to be the best Hollywood liberal version of it, which I was like, you're going to have the Christian character and he's actually like, he doesn't even seem like a real Christian character, to the point even I was like, to his own detriment, I need him to be annoying. Like,
yeah.
Like you mean this character is just like
so like, cool, and
it's just got
edgy,
to a point where I was like none of these
Christian.
characters feel real.
Yeah.
It all feels like what we're supposed to think.
Yeah, but that character was real, so you can't get on that. Actually,
well, he was physically real. Doesn't mean how he was written was real.
But how he was written was a lot of like how he was on Glee Project. So,
was it?
Yes. So I mean, that was basically a real character.
I stopped caring about to me the show, like I didn't like the characters. I didn't like what I just didn't like the characters.
I'll flip back and agree with you. There were certain characters that were too much.
Right.
Xyces bugged me. I didn't hate her, but there were certain things about her character that did bug me.
Right.
Flip to Becky Jackson, who is the mentally handicapped girl, who her character slowly gets worse and worse throughout all the seasons.
Which is so frustrating.
To the point where at the very end of the show, I could not stand her.
Right.
Like, she was such a bitch. Like, and she really was. And like, they even say it at one point. They're like, Becky Jackson is the biggest bitch I've ever met. Like, and it's funny. They're like, what? It's true.
I will say there's something to like that brazen, like, I'm gonna cast these actors that don't normally get cast, and I'm not gonna coddle them or you know, and that, because that's even something that I hear constantly brought up in terms of like racial casting. It's like they either don't cast black people or they make them these hyper goody two shoe version of them, because it's like, oh, we only can stomach people of color if they're like,
if they're perfect,
if they're nice and perfect, and the what's the term that they use a lot, the magical Negro, like if they're that's fine. So there is something to be said about him casting these actors and being like, yeah, she's gonna be a bitch.
Yeah, but she's a normal person and she's not perfect. But that is my number one thing that I do like about his characters, especially on Glee, is the fact that nobody's perfect.
Right.
Not to quote the immortal words of Hannah Montana.
Gross.
But yeah, no, I realized that later on, because I had a lot of moments where I'd be watching them and I'd be like, ugh, what are you doing, Rachel? Like, and I'd be like, what was this person doing? Like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, because at the end of the day, they are human. Like,
right.
Even the best person messes up and does stupid things that they regret later, and I do appreciate that about his characters, is even the best character still does stupid shit sometimes.
Right. So Glee, it averaged about 71% critically
on both,
on 71%
71
audience.
On Tomato and audience score. So that is a record in itself that audience and tomato meters agree.
Favorite season, go.
I would say 2 is more, it's like the classic season for me. 2, or I think it's 5, when Rachel really like becomes herself in New York.
Okay.
Yeah, I really I noticed that I think a lot of people probably didn't like the new high school round of students, and it seemed like he started focusing more on New York where everybody was and bringing all the old characters there. And I was like, that's really what needed to happen in the first place.
Right.
But he has this thing where he likes to toe the line between change and staying the same, and I think he needs to work on that.
Hey, you heard it here, Ryan.
I'll help you out. If you need to try to revamp Scream Queens, I'll tell you how to do it, because season 2 was a travesty.
Well, we'll get there. All right, so next up we have Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh.
Which is a film I didn't know he directed.
Yeah.
He wrote and directed it. It was released on August 13th, 2010, based on the book of the same name by Elizabeth Gilbert, starring
Julia Roberts?
Julia Roberts.
Which is probably where he got his connection to his girl, Emma Roberts.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that's crazy because he did a classic Julia Roberts rom-com.
Right.
It's something.
It was based on the memoir of the same name. The film follows a newly divorced woman who steps out of her comfort zone and embarks on a quest of self-discovery.
Nice. And apparently it didn't do well.
No, it didn't do well at all. Did you see the film?
No.
I did, and the only thing I'll say about it is it's just another white woman who decides to put India, Africa, wow,
Yeah.
I can go here and look how humble they are and look how great they are, and
Yeah,
they can teach me so much.
That's probably why it didn't do well.
Sorry, I don't want to be that aggressive because I'm not super anti-hate everybody. It's just there's tact, and just because your life is moderately out of whack doesn't mean you can use an entire country to make you feel better. So
I haven't seen it, so I'm going to reserve judgment.
Yeah, tomato meter 36% with critics, 42% with the audience. So a little bit better than critics.
A little better, but that's still a very failing grade.
But now we move on to do you think this is his biggest show?
Yes. Yeah, I would say.
I feel like more people are going to be fans of American.
Yeah, I would say it's probably maybe the most widely accepted.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Because I feel like whereas Glee was a big group of diehard fans.
True.
I think that this is a wide range of people who really enjoy it.
Right, and this is the first time he starts doing anthology.
And if you haven't picked up on what we're about to get to right now, we are talking about American Horror Story.
Get out of town.
AHS.
Oh, wow.
Go.
Created by Ryan Murphy and Brad Falchuk.
Look at that.
Premiered on FX on October 5th, 2011. Currently renewed for a 10th season.
10. That is a lot of seasons.
And then it's starring a shit ton of people.
A lot of people are in and out of this, and they're reused in all this stuff.
We've got Kathy Bates. We've got
Sarah Paulson. We've got Tate, Violet. I'm naming the character names from the first season because I still.
We've got Dylan McDermott. We've got Tessa Farmiga. Yeah, Tessa Farmiga.
Precious. Gabourey Sidibe.
Got Emma Roberts.
Oh, yes, of
course.
course.
She shows up. Who else do we have?
A lot of people. I've named a few.
So tell me about American Horror Story, because I tried watching the first episode and I was like, no, I'm out.
So
it got to Dylan McDermott masturbating. I was like, I'm out. I'm good.
Yeah, that was a really awkward scene. But I will say, that one was one that really, really snuck up on me, because that is not my kind of show whatsoever.
No, it's not.
But
you do not like horror stuff.
Yeah, I went to
or grotesque things either.
Yeah, so I went to one of my best friends from high school moved to Oklahoma, and me and my other best friend went to visit her, and we stayed with her for a weekend. And I believe season 2 was about to come out at the time.
Okay.
And so she was like, oh, I'm rewatching American Horror Story because season 2 is coming out. And we were like, what? And she was like, yeah, just watch it. So we started with episode 1 of season 1, and we would watch it 2 or 3 episodes every night before bed.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay. At first I was kind of the first few episodes I was like, this is creepy. I don't want to watch this before I go to sleep in a house that I don't know. This isn't I don't want to do this. But then after the 3rd, 4th, 5th episode, I was like, oh goodness, what's going on? Because then it got to where it was less scary and freaky and more interesting, and I wanted to know the story and how it was going to turn out. And then and then I was super into it. Came back home. We had finished the whole season in 3 days. Came back home, showed it to my older brother. Then we watched season 2 together. Season 3 was coming. Everybody's favorite. We've all agreed.
Which one's season 3?
Coven.
Right. Okay.
That I feel like that's most people's favorite. And then, it just kept going with the anthology. I fell off around season maybe 4 or 5-ish.
Right.
And then I was actually about to give up on the show because I was kind of over it. And
Right.
then they flipped back and brought back Coven in the end of this most recent season. I was like, oh, I'm back in.
So when I watched the first episode of what I believe is called Murder House, right?
Yes, first season.
This is when I started to realize what I disliked about Ryan Murphy. Within the span of, I don't know, 15 minutes, I felt like I had just been pummeled with so many different styles, so many different, it was just so aggressive. Like the show was just kind of, I hate using the term, but in your face. When I was watching Murder House, I felt like I was watching somebody on Adderall trying to tell me a horror story. And it was just it was so much that it was nothing. It almost discounted itself.
Probably somebody off Adderall because they had
Right.
ADHD and they were just all over the place.
But it just was so aggressive that it's I didn't care about anything. It didn't build an atmosphere other than just an atmosphere of ugh.
Yeah.
So after that I was yeah. And then I started to see that as a recurring theme where it just was let's throw everything in the kitchen sink in whether it's one episode or an entire season where you're just kind of wait, what are you trying to focus on here? And that was about the first time. Because even with Glee, I felt like it remained pretty consistent in the stories they were telling. Also, I didn't watch it enough. But I feel like the episodes were pretty focused, even if, I don't know.
Even if maybe the series wasn't.
Yeah. Versus that one episode, the 15 minutes, I was what am I watching? I'm done.
Well, the episodes are 40 minutes long, so you should probably try again.
Nope. It's not happening.
I do agree, especially in the later seasons. I think that there was a lot where it was kind of I just also, I am a person that character development is really important for me.
Right.
So when characters change out, it's just, I'm starting over again from scratch, and I'm just
yeah.
ugh, and it's kind of deflating.
Yeah, I'm not really big on anthologies that much either.
It pulled me in a lot because of the fact that he uses the same characters over and over again, and it's fun to see where this person is now, where they fit in this story and who's going to pop up next. So that's fun. But after a while, I was just I remember when I started Roanoke, I was just kind of I was back to square one. I was love you, Sarah Paulson, but also I can't do this with you guys again.
Right.
I can't start from zero.
I feel I always hear, and we'll try to leave on this now, but I always feel the way I hear people talk about American Horror Stories is kind of the way they talk about The Walking Dead, where it starts to sound like an abusive relationship where they're
Walking Dead is an abusive
they're
relationship.
it'll change, I swear it'll change, babe.
At least American Horror Story, you know what you're getting, but Walking Dead, I guess you know what you're getting there too, but it's just it's worse. Anyways, we'll talk about
I will say I'm not exactly sure if this applies to all the seasons or just one. So the ratings I saw were 53% critically on American Horror Story and 74%. That's kind of different because it's an anthology.
Yeah,
so
I'd say that sounds about right. Probably,
it kind of seems unfair to
because
to rate the whole show based on all the seasons when they're very clearly
they're all very different. I think that if maybe you had experienced it in a different way first off, you might have enjoyed it.
No, I absolutely, it is not a show. It's way too grotesque for me.
Yeah,
and it's too grotesque. I don't mind horror things that save their the imagery
for the end.
Not just for the end, but for very specific parts. And I'll say this: sinister, grotesque stuff, but it's very purposeful when it uses it.
So were you a Saw person at all?
No,
okay.
Did not like Saw.
Yeah, so there's your issue.
So,
I was
but even the first Saw is actually very purposeful.
Yeah.
The first Saw it takes its time.
Yeah.
It builds up. It's got awful gross things, but it's not centered around how many gross things can you do. It's very much this is the story and this is what it builds up to versus and this even became an issue with Glee where it's you start to get known for something and then that's all it becomes. And that's usually the critical issue that's thrown against Glee where it's it was a show about losers who happen to be in a Glee club. And then once they renewed it for more than the first 13 episodes, it became how much musical numbers can we put in? If you like that, you like that.
Yeah, I was I'm going to go ahead and have to disagree with that.
It's what happened.
Yeah.
And critically, most people didn't like it.
but critical people didn't like it. Like the people.
But there is something to be said about.
But the people that the show was for did like it because that's what they were there
But
for.
it's
and
like
that's why you do things like that.
Yeah, but it's like, and this Ryan Murphy's show is like, it starts off as a well balanced breakfast, and then it just ends up becoming a buffet of whatever the fuck he wants. And it's like, there's a reason why we have balanced breakfast and meals. That's why you have like appetizers, a meal, and then like the dessert, and you don't just have dessert.
That's not the case, because from Glee, it's been from season 1 that this has been a thing. Maybe at the end of season 1, they ramped up the songs, but it's like what we were saying, which is like you can't always just introduce things as they're supposed to be.
Right.
Like,
no.
they probably had to pull back a lot of the songs at first because people were like, I don't know how this is going to go over. And then when people were like, I really love that, they're like, good, this is what it was supposed to be, because it is about a Glee club. At the end of the day, it's about the whole point of the story is that these kids are expressing themselves through music. So obviously you're going to add more music as they start to understand that music really helps them. I'm still talking. But that's what I'm saying, is you can't like be like, well, the show is about losers who are in a Glee club. It's like, no, Glee club is what this is about.
I'm not saying you can't add more musicals. It's just like, this is with anything, not just Ryan Murphy, but every single director. There's a reason why a lot of times their first things are better than their later projects, because they have someone telling them no. Now, they have someone saying like, no, you can't do all that stuff.
He does baroque. That's his thing.
And it's... Some
and
people
that
don't.
Is what it is, and some people aren't about it, and it's not fair for them to criticize it.
That's absolutely untrue. I am criticizing it critically.
I'm not gonna hop in and critically say that Breaking Bad was boring as fuck, because I know
you're wrong.
I know it's not for me. Like, but I wouldn't watch that. But
Breaking
then I'm
Bad,
also gonna hop on.
Breaking Bad. Side note: that show had a very great balance of giving you what it promised, but also giving you character development. It had the most insane what the F moments where you were like, I cannot believe they just did that on TV, and then it would have quieter moments to let those build up. A Ryan Murphy show is like all of my favorite stuff from Breaking Bad. Back to back to back to back to back to back to back, where after a while you just be like, I can't, it's too much.
No.
Yes.
No.
Absolutely.
Breaking Bad is just broken bad. It's just they break up all the bad, and they just sprinkle it in, and it's
you haven't even watched. Get out of here.
Where are we? American Horror Story.
No.
Fun Times. The New Normal.
So The New Normal, just so you know, created by Ryan Murphy and Ali Adler, premiered on NBC on September 10th, 2012. Ran for one season. It starred Justin Bartha and Andrew Rannells. It was about a wealthy gay couple that decide to have a child with a surrogate mother who moves into their home with their 9-year-old daughter. With her 9-year-old daughter. This was the show that was based on Ryan's own life and own experiences in this area.
Yes. I will say that from what I saw, I'm sure if I watched it, I would enjoy it. It just seemed like America already had Modern Family, so they didn't necessarily need this. So that's probably why it didn't do well. And I think it's as simple as that.
I saw one ad. I went, no.
Yeah,
I'd be more willing to watch it now than I think at the time.
Yeah, and I think it was just a very... I think for what it was trying to tackle, I don't think it needed to be maybe just like an easy kind of like sitcom like that. It probably should have been something that was slightly took itself a little more seriously.
Maybe, but in his defense, you do feel like you're like trying to balance this act between like, telling real stories, but also trying to tell a story about gay people that doesn't always have to end in like
drama,
tears, and like slit wrists.
Yeah,
no,
I don't think it needed to be that, but I think it looks like it's not the type of show that really can hit those quiet points, as you would say.
I might agree with you, but I haven't seen anything about it, so we'll just move on.
Let's watch it. We'll get back to it.
Then he had his third movie, which was The Normal Heart. It premiered on HBO the 25th of May 2014, based on the book of the same name by Larry Kramer. It starred Mark Ruffalo, Matt Bomer, Taylor Kitsch, Jim Parsons, and Julia Roberts again.
Look at that, just star-studded cast. It follows the rise of the HIV/AIDS crisis in New York City during the 1980s, seen through the eyes of writer/activist Ned Weeks, the founder of the prominent HIV advocacy group.
Yep. This is his highest score for any of his
Ooh,
films.
yeah.
It's got a 94% critic rating, 87% audience score.
Well, what's funny
What?
is the preview for it started out with like a bunch of like guys on like Fire Island, and it was all very like bright and fun, and I was like, ooh, this looks like fun. And then it got really serious really quickly, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
no.
I remember when I saw the trailers for this, it did look really intense. And it was one of the first times I had seen Jim Parsons play something outside of
What Sheldon?
outside of Sheldon. So and I also really like Taylor Kitsch. He's John Carter from John Carter
Must Die.
from Mars. John Carter of Mars.
Yeah.
No, that's John Tucker.
No, I was doing John Tucker.
Okay, no, he was John Carter, and I really like him. I don't like him as a leading actor, but I like him as a supporting actor. I think he does a
Nice.
really good job when he has these like meaty roles to like dig into. So then we go on to a show that we actually have both watched.
Okay, let's try not to get too crazy here.
Start off with the particulars. We've got
Scream Queens.
Scream Queens, created by Ryan Murphy, Brad Falchuk, shocker, and Ian Brennan.
So same Glee team.
Yep.
Premiered on NBC on September 22nd, 2015. Happy birthday to me, because
Oh yeah.
then it would have come on Hulu the next day,
Right.
on the 23rd for me. So happy birthday.
Ran for 2 seasons, December 20th, 2016. It was starring Emma Roberts, Leah Michele, Billy Lord, Abigail Breslin, Nick Jonas, Jamie Lee Curtis,
And that murdering Zayday Williams,
That's fun. That's so
who
much
is played by Keke Palmer.
It was an anthology horror comedy about a 20-year-old mystery that's reignited when a serial killer begins targeting the sorority members of Kappa Kappa Tau. That's the first season. I didn't watch the second season.
Second season was garbage.
So let's talk
and
about the
I'll
first.
explain why later. First season was magic. Like it was great. It was just very much just an over-exaggerated comedic version of your classic sorority slasher.
There's obviously things that we both love. Chanel number 3, just a marvelous discovery to find that Billy Lord was just so perfect at like
Yeah.
such a held back
Understated,
character
yeah.
that I honestly cannot think of a character I enjoyed more in a show than her. Just like her quotes. Chanel number 2's death.
Yes, that would be Ariana Grande.
Ariana Grande. Her death sequence. I don't think I've laughed harder at something. Like at least Ryan Murphy wise, that hit me really hard in a good funny way. Jamie Lee Curtis is perfect
Yeah,
in anything she does. Honestly, I don't think I've ever had an issue with Jamie Lee Curtis.
she's infallible.
She is the first and scream queen. So she was.
Oh, I was like, what?
She was in Halloween.
Yeah.
And
I thought you were saying that she was like one of the Chanels or something. I was like, what? What are
no.
you talking
She was
about?
the first scream queen.
Yeah.
So it was perfect to have
Great
her
to
in
pull
the
her
show.
Yeah, and they actually do a callback to that later when the murderer tries to kill her.
Yeah.
She's in the shower, and they do like the whole scene. With,
Clever.
But
That was her mother.
Okay, yeah, right.
So her mother was the psycho. Why am I
that
forgetting?
classic scene with the
Yeah.
in the shower, but they did that to her, except she kicked the freaking serial killer's ass.
The
because
Red Devil, right?
The Red Devil's ass, because
So
she's a badass.
there was good things. I don't think my complaint on the show would be an acting department. For the most part, I enjoyed most of the actors. I did not like the main character. She was basically just toast with legs.
Yeah, same.
Bland.
I thought she was very boring.
Very bland toast with legs.
Yeah, she wasn't like, I don't think she was really like a lot of his normal main characters.
Yeah, she really wasn't.
Yeah, because usually there's still something to them, and there's still something not perfect about them.
Yeah.
And she was just very much that moral lead that never really varied.
Yeah. So the show itself is 75% critic, at least the first season, 75% critically, and audience score 76%. I don't want to go too hard into it because we will argue. For one, this is one of 2 Ryan Murphy shows I've actually watched a season all the way through. One of them was because I genuinely actually enjoyed it. And this one was because I don't like starting a mystery and not knowing how it's going to end. And my biggest issue was 2 things. Denise Hemphill,
Yes.
when they're stuck inside a house and
The killer's in the house.
The killer's going to come in the house. And then she goes, what does she say? Like, she
says, hold on, before we can leave or before we go or run away or something like that, you guys have to tell me a scary story because that helps me calm down. Something to that effect.
So, which leads to kind of a clip episode, basically,
of them all telling scary stories and it showing clips of them.
And that's when I was just like, okay, I get it. We've got a murder mystery, already hard enough to kind of stretch that over 13 episodes, because usually slasher films are usually the tightest of like horror films. They're an hour 30 minutes max. It's very much like bum 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 bum, killer gets caught. So to stretch it out for 13 episodes was already kind of like, okay, you're going to have to pad a lot. And this was when I was like, okay, you clearly wanted to make an episode where they tell scary stories, which is a fun idea, but it didn't logically get there for me. And that's just like, that to me, like I said, is my biggest issue with Ryan Murphy. He does all the stuff he wants and they're all good ideas, but I don't feel like they're connected. A lot of times it just feels like a buffet of everything that's fun. And then that's it. And by the end, I was like, I don't care. It's fine. It was well done, I guess. I didn't care about they just had a lot of fun moments. And the second biggest issue, when the hell did like the Chanels suddenly become like, what did they become like feminists in one episode? And it comes out of nowhere because that's a fun moment. It's a great moment, but it came out of freaking nowhere. And I was just like, this is the issue I have with Ryan Murphy. It's just a lot of fun, cool stuff, not connected very well. I'm sure you can criticize me for that, but I disagree.
I will say in rebuttal very calmly that I do agree with those 2 points. Those 2 points in the entire series did stick out. Like when I was watching the Denise Hempfield Tell Me a Horror Story, I was like, oh, that's kind of dumb. Y'all should be running. And then when the feminist thing, I was like, this is fun, but when the hell did you guys start caring about females? Because y'all have been bitches this entire movie or this entire show. So those 2 did stick out with me. I'm the kind of person that doesn't write off a whole series because of a couple things that don't necessarily line up. Personally, I'll ride with it because overall, I enjoyed all of the characters outside of the one main character. It's so boring. But literally everybody else I thought was so great, so fun. It's very much like just my genre of fun and attractive. In general, I just love the fact that they were able to do whatever they want because of the way that this show was set up. It was very much like, we're here to be ridiculous. Like, all of these characters are over the top. This story is stupid. Like, the start of it is there was a kid born at a sorority party and the mom died in the bathtub because the sorority girls didn't want to stop partying. Like, it's ridiculous. And so the kid grew up and came back and murdered all the girls in that sorority who obviously have no connection to the death of their mom. So it's kind of like, the premise is stupid, the characters are dumb, but it's an incredibly fun ride, and that's why I was there, and that's why it's not necessarily something that I'm like, oh my god, like, this stuck out, this was stupid. It's all stupid. Like, yeah, there are ways to do things that are stupid and still like line up, but overall I can discount 2 5 to 10 minute scenes because overall 13 episodes was really fun for me. So just in general, I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun, but season 2, I don't know what happened.
I couldn't get into it.
No,
I will say visually it didn't even look good. It was something about that green tint that just was like,
the green meanie or whatever, that murderer was just not good. It was just so I didn't realize it was supposed to be a horror anthology until you said that.
Right. The idea was to kind of do what he did with American Horror Story, except keep the actual characters.
Yeah.
But change the scenario around.
Yeah. I will say me and my roommate at the time, Gabby, hey girl, how you doing? We were we watched the first season, loved it. It is a show specifically designed to target our personality types, personally, apparently. But the second season, we both were so incredibly excited. We were like, oh my gosh, did you hear there's going to be another season of Scream Queens? Yes, let's watch it. Watched literally all the way up to the last episode. Didn't know it was the last episode. And we were sitting down one day on the couch and we were like, should we like watch more Scream Queens, like season 2? And we both just kind of looked at each other and we're like, nah, like I'm not feeling it. And we were like, yeah. And then months later, I was looking at it. I was looking at the episodes, and I was like, "Did you realize like we were literally on the last episode?"
Just
and she
didn't
was
care?
like, "No way!" And I was like, "Yeah, should we watch it?" And we both kind of were like, "Nah."
So you still don't know who the Green Meanie is?
I don't care.
Yeah.
Like I just
Now, why do you think you didn't care?
so I think what happened in season 2 is that what I said earlier, he towed that line of changing and staying the same.
Right.
And I think either everything needed to change or nothing needed to change. Either it needed to be as simple as season 2, everybody's back where they were.
Right.
We're back to normal. Like, oh man, that was crazy, right? And then there's a copycat Red Devil killer.
Right.
Done. Season 2. Let's start from scratch. Not start from scratch, but let's oh God, let's figure it out. Is
Right.
it one of us? Is it somebody else? What did we do last season that would piss somebody off? Blah, blah, blah. Figure that out. Let's enjoy the characters some more. Because
So-
that's what it's mainly about. Then flip, if it was completely different.
Then
if
you would
it's
just-
an anthology series and it's just the same characters or different characters.
Well, I would
whatever.
argue that you pretty much back my theory. It's just your enjoyment only depends on if all the things he's throwing at the screen you like. But then you can clearly see where there is no substance to that. Because it's like if you don't like all the fun, flurry things on top, then the characters don't, you'll realize how like thin the characters are. And like for the most part, that's why I feel pretty solid in criticizing him critically. Because it's like, even if you don't enjoy the show, even if you don't like the character development's not the strongest, you're at least enjoying what he's giving you. But obviously when he's like not giving you something you want, you're just like, I don't know. Seems very empty.
I see you, but you're wrong.
Oh, you see me, but I'm wrong?
You're wrong. I would just say that the characters were developed and then he just didn't follow through.
So
There was no follow through.
Interesting.
Is what I'll leave it
it's
on.
an interesting workaround. So there's 2 shows left of interest here to me. So we've got American Crime Story,
Yes.
which was not developed by Ryan Murphy to begin with. It was developed by Scott Alexander and Larry Karaszewski. They connected up with Ryan Murphy and Brad Falchuk, and then they essentially together kind of made season 1 happen. Ryan Murphy directed the episodes of the first season, but he wasn't as involved as he usually is. And tellingly enough, it is the highest rated show on here. Season 1, The People versus O.J. Simpson, which, if you don't know, American Crime Story is an anthology series following separate true crime events. Season 1 was about the arrest of O.J. Simpson, and Season 2 was about the assassination of Gianni Versace. Season 1 premiered on FX February 2nd, 2016. That season had a critical rating of 97%.
OMFG.
And an audience score of 94%.
Wow.
Season 2 had a critical score of 89%. And I guess the audience score isn't in yet, but you enjoyed it, right?
I guess that means you're right. I guess Ryan Murphy is trash and doesn't know how to make things because clearly.
I didn't say he's trash. I just said critically he's not acclaimed. I have not
But
like
here-
some people like only
Yeah.
ice cream, but I'm not saying you
exactly.
can't discount my critical critique of him.
For me personally,
Right.
I don't give a shit about critics. I don't give a shit about critical acclaim. I do not.
I'm not saying I based my enjoyment of the thing on the critic.
Yeah.
I'm saying my
But-
critical analysis of him
Yeah.
stands.
But the thing is, you're doing a critical analysis, which I don't give a shit about, is what I'm saying. Is like because people will be like, "Oh, this movie looked really good," but the critics gave it like a whatever rating, so like I don't think it's gonna be that good. I might not watch it, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Like if I think something looks good, I'm gonna watch it and I'm gonna decide because I generally don't agree with critics. So that's why, like in general, when you're like, oh, but critically, blah, 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 I'm like, I don't care. It's nothing against you personally. I'm just saying I don't get into the critical analysis of
Right.
things. So in general, this means the tomato meter means nothing to me, basically. is what
No, I get it. I'm not one. Obviously, my favorite series of all time is Pirates of the Caribbean, which is very critically lauded for a lot of the same things that I've actually even said about Ryan Murphy now.
Look at that. He's a hypocrite. I'm just
Which
kidding.
is like, second and third films are way more of like what the first film was reserved on, so like I get it. I enjoyed it. I think for me, Ryan Murphy, it's not that I'm saying, oh, the other critics say he's bad, so I'm going to agree with them. I generally think this man is just phenomenal at what he does. But there is something to be said about the multiple projects he works on at once. And it's like at a certain point, it's just logical that certain things are going to drop by the wayside. And for me, I just feel like it has been proven, not only critically, but just from like when it comes to actual quality standpoint, he does a lot of great stuff. I feel like his characters are just, there's not much there other than this pomp and circumstance. Some people can still enjoy the show regardless. I'm not one of those people.
Did you hear that, Ryan Murphy? Hire me, not him.
I also will say, for the most part, I don't like to criticize a lot of his shows because most of them are not geared towards me.
Yeah.
Scream Queens, which was up my wheelhouse, I didn't like, but that's not because I just don't like Ryan Murphy. That was because I was watching and went, I don't like this. But it does highlight what I don't like about Ryan Murphy.
Yeah, I feel bad that you didn't like Scream Queens because you're missing out. Like you should have, but I think it was still.
I should have. It was everything I thought I wanted.
Yeah, I think it was still a little bit gay inspired. Like, it's something that gay guys and women would like.
I didn't mind. It's to me. My issue wasn't. It was just like I said. I don't know how I can articulate this more. Watching a Ryan Murphy show is like eating a ton of candy. And after a while, I'm like, I need more than just candy.
I don't know, but you do like ridiculous things. I think
I do, but a lot of them have substance to them. And I personally didn't feel like I connected with those characters. I thought they were funny. I didn't give a shit about them. Case in point, none of us liked the main character. Yeah. So we were just coasting on like they're fun. I didn't like Chanel's.
I usually don't like characters like that. And the fact, so you didn't like.
I thought they were shallow.
Yeah, but you didn't like the Chanel's. But I'm saying like that would be something that like a gay guy or a woman would love.
I don't know if what I'm disliking about them is the flamboyancy, but for me, I'm like, those aren't nice characters. They're shitty, mean characters.
A character like that.
Are you saying gay people just like shitty, mean people?
Yeah.
Why?
We're shitty, mean people.
You know, so.
And I can say that. I mean, not everybody.
I don't know how to critique that, but yeah, sometimes he makes shitty, mean characters. I'm like, I don't want to watch this. Do you have any notes on Assassination of Gianni Versace? Because I know a lot of people did like that.
I did really like the second season. I started OJ. I can tell the difference between the two because I watched 2 episodes of OJ and was like, cool, I'll finish that someday.
Nah.
Didn't really
care. I
care.
can't see you finishing it.
And then Gianni Versace, it was Darren Criss. I was like, I'm gonna watch this, period.
Yeah.
And then just in general, it's just, I mean, if I could just say like a visual difference, to me, it was like brighter and more colorful.
I will say that like there's kind of a blandness on OJ.
Yeah, where it's like I feel like I'm watching like an actual trial and I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Versus like Gianni's like, oh, this is a story. Like, and I'm following.
Yeah. Then we move on. We have Feud, Betty and Joan. We'll go through this one quick. Created by Ryan Murphy,
Jaffe Cohen
and Michael Zam. It premiered on FX on March 5th, 2017. Ran for 1 season, starring Jessica Lange and Susan Sarandon, Catherine Zeta-Jones, a few others, Stanley Tucci, Alfred Molina. Originally conceived as an anthology series, the first and only season focused on the infamous feud between Betty Davis and Joan Crawford on the set of their film, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Scored 75% with critics and 76% with audience.
Okay, did
solid.
Pretty well.
I didn't watch it.
I didn't either. I would be interested to see what the next feud might be.
So moving on, we've got 911 TV series. Ryan Murphy, Brad Falchuk, Tim Meanier, whatever. Premiered on Fox January 3rd, 2018. Currently has 3 seasons, starring Angela Bassett, Peter Krause, and Connie Britton. I just want to pause for a quick second. I haven't watched all of this show because it is procedural, and that's just not usually my type of show. But the few episodes I have watched, holy hell, is Angela Bassett not one of like an awesome?
Course.
She is so great. She was one of the first characters on a Ryan Murphy show. I was like, I like this character.
Yeah.
I really like her. I actually liked the dynamic of their group. Like I said, it's not my typical show. I grew up watching CSI and all those, and I feel like I kind of grew out of that. Like, I grew out of the procedural phase. Like, I started really liking more linear stories. So it was never going to be something I watched religiously. But I do admire, if you've watched 911, it's a procedural drama following the lives of first responders in Los Angeles. It's pretty highly scored, 81% critically, 78% audience-wise.
Nice. Yeah, it's not going to be something that I really watch.
It's not really a show you watch. There are some pretty people in it.
Yeah, I know. What's his face was looking real good. I was going to watch it for him, but I was like,
It's dark. It's. I feel like it's a good balance. When I watched it, I felt like it was it was a more tempered version. It gave like the highlight moments that you would expect from a Ryan Murphy show, but I feel like I really first episode I was like, oh, I actually care about these characters and I'm interested. I thought the father-son dynamic between Peter Krause and the younger one was really nice. I liked Connie Britton as kind of like the woman who was answering the 911 emergencies. I like that concept. I like the idea that this is a person who has her own life, and yet she's constantly got to take on other people's
and stuff. Yeah.
You know, so there was a lot of things that I feel like within 1 or 2 episodes I connected with. I was like, oh, I like this. Like,
nice.
Solidly acted. And for the most part, I usually never have an issue with the actors. Even when they're doing campy, it's like, how can you fault them? They're doing campy roles. Like, I can't say they're bad actors.
They're having fun.
They're having fun. So that's that. Then one of the biggest shows that's come out.
Oh shit!
You've watched this.
Pose.
We've got Pose, created by Ryan Murphy, Brad Falchuk. Like I said, originally developed by Steve Canals.
Steve C. Anals.
Premiered on FX June 3rd, 2018. Currently has 2 seasons. Starring MJ Rodriguez, Dominique Jackson, Billy Porter. The first 2, by the way, are trans actresses, which I believe this show has the majority of any trans actor, period.
Yeah.
So, which is a huge thing for a network show. Also starring Evan Peters, he's a household name by now when it comes to Ryan Murphy. He's the young, skinny, white one, the crazy one.
Tate,
I guess.
Tate. Yeah, Tate. Sorry, I don't have his actual name yet. He's still Tate from season 1.
Wow. Yeah, tell us about this show.
Wow, it is set during the 80s and 90s. It follows the lives of several Black and Latino LGBT dancers, models competing for trophies and recognitions in New York's underground ball culture.
Right.
So it is very trans and drag queen, which I am not going to pretend to know a lot about because I don't watch Drag Race. I don't follow a lot of that stuff. But this was something that I was able to, like, even as a gay man, learn a lot about that and really, like, care about these characters that he was developing and learn a lot about like the AIDS pandemic in that time, because that was a crazy time for the LGBT community.
Well, you know what? This might be his highest rated show. This one's got a 96% and 87 audience wise. I'm actually shocked that it's not higher audience wise.
Yeah.
Because I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Yeah, same.
This would be one of the shows where I would admit I'm not going to be interested in it because it's just nothing along anything I identify with.
About.
You know, I would watch it. I do like Billy Porter. He did win an Emmy for his work on the show. India Moore, who I believe that's the actress who was also in Queen and Slim. She did a solid job in that. So, but yeah, this was definitely one of those where it's like, I'm not going to critique it because it's not made for someone like me. And I haven't seen it yet, so. Yeah,
it's not your realm. Have you seen any of it?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect you to.
I honestly didn't even know that it was around. Like, I saw the posters, but the posters were so.
I thought it was the newest season of American Horror Story, actually. I was surprised. I didn't find out it was a show until it was done with the first season and on Netflix.
Right.
And then ended up watching it, and now I'm still waiting for the second season.
So
it actually, there was a scene in the very beginning that hit me very hard when the son, I guess, I don't know if he came out or if he was outed, but he said something to his mom that I said to my mom, and I lost it for a second.
Do you have it written down? Is that what you're looking for?
No, I know what it was. I just was trying to
you don't want
get there so we can go to it.
I'm going to skip ahead before we talk about The Politician. The latest show that he's released is 911 Lone Star. Currently has 73% critics rating, but a 45% audience rating. It's quite a divide there.
I was like, where did this even come from? Like, what was the necessity of it?
It has Rob Lowe and Liv Tyler.
Yeah.
And that's about it. That's all I care to talk about.
Yeah, I was like, that was the one when I was watching. I was like, oh, Rob Lowe's looking kind of good right there. I might watch it, but also I'm definitely not. And then we missed
no, I know.
your favorite show.
I wanted to skip ahead.
Saving it?
Well, yeah, because this is the one show
that we agree on so far.
Yeah.
We'll see how season 2 goes.
I'd be interested. No, so The Politician was the first and only show that I watched all the way through of Ryan Murphy and thoroughly enjoyed. And I feel like it had a lot of the same kind of annoying characters, but what sold it for me was, so The Politician was created by Ryan Murphy, Brad Falchuk, Ian Brennan, premiered on Netflix on September 27th, 2019, currently filming its second season. starring Ben Platt, Zoe Dutch, Jessica Lange, Gwyneth Paltrow, a whole bunch of other people.
And Corn Sweat. David Corn Sweat.
Sure. It follows the political career of a high school student running for student body president. Tomato meter, it critically scored a 57%. Audience, it was 86. I liked this one, and when I read the interviews, or when I read the reviews, it was a lot of the same things I usually say about his other shows. I think for me, what sold this was Ben Platt, the way he played his character of Peyton Hobart. I feel like he made that character very accessible, especially with the first episode that starts off with like the suicide of like his shared lover. Who is that actor?
David Corn Sweat's Delicious Body.
David Corn Sweat did a very good and subtle job of playing this kind of like this wounded character. And Ben Platt, I think he says something where it's like, I don't think I'm a good person. And then I believe it's his mom that's like, but if you do good things, like, you know, what does it really matter who you are deep down?
Exactly, because all you have to do.
Don't say it. I swear. I swear. Don't say
go.
it. I'm done.
Go ahead.
And there was something about that was touching to me, like this idea of a narcissistic character who knows he's a narcissist, knows that there's something wrong with him, and yet he still, in an admirable way, chooses to do what's right, even though it's not what deep down he's meant to be. And there's something about that I thought was very interesting for a character. You usually have these characters who are really nasty and mean and are nasty and mean, or you have characters who are good and, you know, they do good things and they struggle with that. And I'm like, yeah, that's interesting. But there's something about a character
who you identify with.
There's something about a character who doesn't need to be good, but chooses to be because he knows he should be, even though it's not in his nature. And there was something very interesting and intriguing about that. Show still suffers from a lot of what I have an issue with, where it's just like, wait, what are you going for? There's so many like things like, for me, honestly, the whole Munchausen by proxy subplot where it's like you have this daughter who her mother's convinced her that she's sick in order to get all this attention. This is actually something that really happened. They did a whole Hulu series about it. It was one of those things where it felt like I'm going to do this as well because I wanted to do a show about this, but I didn't want to make the whole show about that. It's going to be about this one thing, but it's also going to be about it was just like, it was a lot of what I kind of said, and a lot of the characters I didn't
do that too.
Yeah, I'm not saying I don't agree with him for it.
It's okay when you do it.
I didn't say it's okay when I do it. I just, if you're going to attempt it, like, you know, you can't fault people for critiquing you for not making it. So he clearly does a lot of what he wants to do. But for me, I don't know. I enjoyed this. I thought it was an interesting concept. It was I'm curious about watching where it goes. I think the idea of it's too, because it's the same idea where it's like an anthology series where each season's going to deal with a new political like
a triumph or a new political conquest.
Yes. So I'm intrigued. I think that's interesting. It's like a whole behind the scenes look that I'm interested in seeing, which is probably the reason why I'm excited for Hollywood. And I feel like the camp, or what he likes to call being baroque, I feel it played very well here, but it was kind of more focused. This show just felt a lot more focused. And I think that was the one benefit of it being on a Netflix, is like, since he knew it was going to be watched kind of from beginning, middle to end, that it felt more like a film. It felt a little bit more streamlined. And for me, it was a little bit more of an enjoyable process versus, like, in my opinion, all the other shows are just like so much each episode that they don't feel coherent to me. I feel exhausted after episode 1. So that's what I felt about The Politician.
I enjoyed it too. And I liked David Corn Sweat.
We talked a lot. We've talked a lot this episode.
Yeah. Cool. And then he's upcoming Got Hollywood, which is going to be a limited series that should be premiering on May 1st, 2020. Starring, again, David Corn Sweat from here, Darren Criss, my boy, Jeremy Pope, supposedly Dylan McDermott, Patty LuPone, and Jim Parsons are set to be in that as well. It is, by his quote, said to be a love letter to the golden age of Tinseltown.
I mean, I'm interested.
Yes, it is set in a post-World War II LA. Hollywood follows the several characters trying to make it in the film industry while looking at how marginalized people were treated in Hollywood.
That would be Hollywood, Ryan Murphy, yeah, hopefully we can tell you how it is.
Future projects coming up for his $300 million deal, which is unheard of.
Jesus.
We did say that at some point.
Oh, we've
right?
said it.
Okay, cool. A Chorus Line, which is a miniseries adaptation of a Broadway musical.
Right up his alley.
The Boys in the Band, which is a film adaptation of a Broadway musical using the original cast.
Once again, up his alley.
The Prom, which will star Meryl Streep and Nicole Kidman.
Okay.
Again, another Broadway musical adaptation.
A little too many musicals for my taste, but
And then Ratchet, which is a prequel to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, starring Sarah Paulson.
when I read this and it was like, oh, okay, Ryan Murphy. Like, it just felt like the most Ryan Murphy. Like, even with all of these like musical things, when it was like a prequel to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest
And you were like, there
with
it is.
Sarah Paulson, I was like,
There it is. Because the other ones were like, yeah, that makes sense for you. You do that. And then this one is very much like, you would, huh?
yeah, well, like, I know exactly what's gonna. It's basically gonna look like an offshoot of like American Horror Story
Mhm.
with Sarah Paulson doing another.
Amazing character.
Yeah. If there's one word you would give Ryan Murphy, what would it be?
Queen. Yes, queen.
Oh, I don't. The word I thought of wasn't actually campy. I would say pulp. He's very pulpy, very much like grab your attention and get you to read. And I will agree with you. You might be correct because they usually do like pulpy, fun, like over the top type things. They don't. Maybe his just doesn't speak to me because it does have a more
a
queer
more
sensibility.
LGBT connotation,
Which is
or-
like it's not
yeah.
it's not my thing. So I'm less likely to care about his characters, not in a nasty way. It's just like
Since you don't necessarily identify with the characters or where the story is coming from.
yeah, it's not necessarily going to draw me
Yeah.
in as easily.
Those underlying things that draw people in are just not necessarily going to draw you.
No, but I did like The Politician. I really loved Benjamin Platt. I've liked him since what was it?
Since
Pitch Perfect. So
I
it's
got the magic.
it's nice to see him playing a character that he can really sink his teeth into. His energy was perfect in that. And I'm actually really interested in seeing where Ryan Murphy goes with Netflix, especially if he if he's able to kind of hone his vision a little bit more and kind of just do whatever he wants, but on a more streamlined kind of like.
Yeah, let's send him this episode and just helpful advice.
Yeah. Oh, Ryan
For
Murphy.
you, Ryan.
We
This is
know.
for you.
We might be two guys in an apartment talking about your show, but we know things.
We know. We can help you.
Let us know what you think about Ryan Murphy. Is Benji completely off base?
Why
Or
did you have to
is
start with Benji completely? Is Benji completely right? Yes.
no, is Benji off base or is Josiah right? Let me know in the
You're
comments
gross.
below.
I hate you. Heads I wins, tails he loses.
Hey,
All right. If you like this, make sure you're liking, commenting, and subscribing on all social media. We are at Pink Popcast.
that's Pop with a P.
And don't forget to follow us on Spotify. Make sure you're giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts.
That really helps us grow our audience.
Yes, it sure does. We're also available wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button and the bell for notifications on future uploads, and subscribe, please.
Yeah, and if you have any thoughts on this week's episode, make sure that you let us know in the comments via mail, carrier pigeon. I've said that a few times. I should come up with
Yeah,
more.
you should have more.
You know,
Ryan
fish.
Murphy direct message. I don't know.
What would you recommend for our listeners to watch?
From Ryan Murphy?
Yeah.
Scream Queens, season 1. Gotta be. Got to. I just feel like it's the easiest one to really be like, if this is your type of like person or producer, or this is just the kind of stuff you like, Scream Queens is the greatest. Like, just you can watch it. It's like enough to really like enjoy it, but it's not saying watch Glee, which is 6 20-episode seasons that are an hour long.
Yeah, that's true. It's 13 episodes per season.
Yeah.
It's
good.
Even though I thought it was very meandering, I feel like if you enjoy Ryan Murphy, you'll enjoy this show.
Yeah.
Most people who liked Ryan Murphy liked Scream Queen season 1.
Most people liked Scream Queen season 1.
Yeah. So there you go. That is our recommendation.
What of his works would you recommend?
I'd
to somebody
recommend
if
The
they asked?
Politician.
Okay, I was like, no. Genuinely, what would you recommend?
I'd
to
recommend The
somebody?
Politician.
Okay,
I
that's
like that
cool.
one.
That's what we want. We want genuine recommendations.
So we're thankful that you guys listened to this episode, and
Yes.
we'll see you next week with another new episode.
Yes.
But until then, I'm Josiah Rizzo,
I'm Benji Jones.
and on Wednesdays, we wear pink. Oh, hi.
If we're being real, Benji's gonna produce reality shows.
I love that. I love that she opted to help me out with that. So apparently I'll be producing reality shows
All right, well, we're going to try that again.
from our live studio audience.